He stood in the doorway, holding the envelope like it was nothing. Like it was not the $30,000 lifeline I had hidden under my mattress. Rowan's face shifted between guilt and something close to pride. Before I could breathe, he said the line that would change everything. I spent part of it. He told me I covered the honeymoon, but I kept the rest for emergencies. The words hit me hard. I blinked, unsure if I had heard correctly, while he fumbled to explain, hesitating between shame and guilt. But the envelope in his hand was flat, weightless. He had emptied it, all of it. My name is Marwin Hale. I am 67. I felt the room tilt as Rowan kept talking, explaining how his wife wanted somewhere beautiful, how her parents said a proper honeymoon needed a resort with photos worth posting, how his friends bragged about beachfront suites and champagne. He said they all assumed I had savings I never touched, that I would not miss it. I could not speak. I could barely hold myself upright. He had taken the only money I had managed to save, the only thing standing between me and the surgery I had been postponing for months. Then he looked at me differently, as if something inside him finally clicked. His voice shook. "Mom, this money had a purpose, didn't it?" I did not answer. Not yet. Not. My hand rested on the edge of the mattress where the envelope used to be, the place I thought would keep it safe. Rowan's face drained of color, and the silence between us grew heavier than the truth I still had not spoken. I turned away, the pain in my back reminding me that time was no longer on my side. There were things he needed to know, things I had avoided saying for too long. And now there was no way to hide them any longer. Rowan followed me into the kitchen like he expected me to yell. But my voice wasn't there anymore. I pulled out a chair slowly, easing my back the way I'd learned to do when the pain sharpened. "Mom, say something," he whispered. I kept my hands folded. "What did you think that money was for?" He hesitated. "I thought, I don't know. You always save, see, you never spend on yourself. I figured it was extra." "Extra," I repeated, the word cutting deeper than his confession. "Rowan, I haven't had anything extra in years." He sank into the chair across from me. "Then tell me what it was for." I looked at him. Really looked at him. His face was still soft around the edges, not yet shaped by real consequence. He had no idea what life looked like at 67 when your body began to betray you. "I need surgery," I said quietly. "I've been postponing it for months, hoping I could manage. But the doctor warns my mobility could be at risk." Rowan blinked hard. "Since when?" "Since before your wedding," I said. "Since before you and Elise started talking about a honeymoon in Tahiti. Since the day I realized walking from the grocery store to the car felt like dragging an anchor." He shook his head. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you don't need another burden," I said. "And I don't want my life to shrink around someone else's pity. That's not fair," he said, voice breaking. "I would have helped." "You didn't even ask before you took it," I answered. "That money was everything I had left." Rowan leaned forward, elbows shaking on the table. "I can fix this. I'll find a way." I nodded, though nothing about this could be fixed quickly. The truth had finally entered the room, and there was no taking it back now. Rowan stayed at the table long after I finished speaking, his hands clasped like he was bracing for a storm. When he finally lifted his eyes, something inside him seemed cracked open. "Mom, I didn't take it because I wanted to hurt you," he said. "I thought it was family money. Just saved up leftovers you never used. That was a dangerous assumption." I said. He swallowed. I know that now." He pushed his fingers through his hair, the way he used to do when he was a boy trying to explain a broken toy. "Elise wanted a certain kind of honeymoon," he said. "Her parents said a proper start to a marriage needed a real vacation. Her mom kept saying, 'If your mother has savings, she should want to see you happy.' And then her sister joked that I'd probably take Elise camping if someone didn't step in." He let out a thin, embarrassed laugh. I didn't want them thinking I couldn't provide. He continued. Everyone was sharing photos of expensive resorts. Elise kept sending me videos, and I felt pressured to match it. I kept saying we couldn't afford it, and she kept saying love didn't need to be cheap, so you found a way to make it expensive. I said. He winced. I shouldn't have touched your money. I felt like a failure. Like if I didn't give her what she wanted, she'd start regretting marrying me. And the remaining funds I asked, I set aside part to pay off a small outstanding loan, he said quietly, hesitant to admit how he stretched the budget. I didn't want Elise finding out. Her family already thinks I'm the weak link. I didn't want to look small. The room felt smaller instead. You built a life on trying to impress people who don't care about you, I said. He nodded slowly, eyes unfocused, like he was seeing the truth for the first time. I know, he whispered, and now everything's falling apart. His voice cracked, and I could feel the weight settling around him, the image he'd tried so hard to hold up finally caving in. Rowan sat in silence, but I could feel his questions circling the room. My back tightened just from the thought of answering them. I didn't know it was this bad, he said. His voice was thin, unsteady. You weren't supposed to, I replied. You already had enough to carry. He shook his head. Mom, that's not your call. I looked away, my hand settling on the counter for balance. When you get older, you start choosing which truths you can allow people to see. I chose the ones that didn't make you worry. A memory tugged at me, the narrow hallway of the clinic in downtown Portland. The fluorescent lights buzzing softly. The specialist had looked at my scans and pressed his lips together before speaking. If you wait much longer, he'd said, you risk losing mobility. The procedure isn't optional anymore. I had nodded, even though my legs felt like they were disappearing beneath me. Rowan's voice pulled me back. Why didn't you tell me after that appointment? Because I didn't want to alarm you, I said. I've been managing it carefully. I didn't want to be the parent who needs help every hour of the day. You're not a burden. People don't get to decide that for themselves, I said quietly. He stared at me, wounded. I could have been there. You were building a life, I said. Your father used to tell me, take care of yourself first, Marwen. But I never learned how. I always thought if I stayed strong enough, the world would eventually get easier. And it didn't, he murmured. I finally met his eyes. No, it didn't. He reached across the table, hesitant, like he wasn't sure I'd take his hand. For a moment, I let him. His grip was warm, apologetic, but the truth between us was still too heavy. I pulled my hand back gently. I needed space to breathe before I could speak the rest aloud. Rowan stayed seated while I tried to steady my breathing. His eyes followed every movement I made, as if he were studying a puzzle he'd ignored for years. Mom, he said quietly, you've been limping for months. I didn't answer. And you stopped taking those bookkeeping shifts at the Henderson place. You told me they cut hours, but that doesn't make sense. They're always begging for help. I felt my shoulders stiffen. He reached for the drawer beside me and pulled it open before I could stop him. The medical folders were stacked exactly where I'd hidden them under grocery receipts. He lifted the top one, his thumb brushing over the date from earlier that year. You've been seeing a specialist, yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you don't need every burden I carry, I said. He held the folder tighter. You can't decide that for me. I let out a slow breath. Rowan, the surgery isn't optional anymore. The doctor said if I wait much longer, I could lose mobility. The cost is high, even after insurance. The $30,000 covered the portion not paid by insurance. The minimum needed to proceed with the surgery. His face drained of color. Mom, this money wasn't just savings, was it? He asked cautiously, realizing he hadn't considered its significance. I didn't nod. I didn't speak. I just watched the realization dismantle him piece by piece. I thought it was just money you weren't using. I thought you'd saved it for years and didn't need it. If I didn't need it, I wouldn't have hidden it, I said. He pressed his palms against his forehead. I didn't know. God, I didn't know. That's because you never asked, I said, softer than I felt. He looked up at me, eyes red. I can fix this. I'll get the money back somehow. That honeymoon is already over, I said, and the debt you paid off isn't coming back. He opened his mouth, but no words came. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to explain. The truth had arrived, and it settled between us with a weight neither of us could lift. Rowan left my house that evening with a tight jaw and a promise he couldn't possibly keep. I didn't hear from him until the next morning. When he called, voice shaking. I'm at Elise's parents' place, he said. They want to talk. What does that mean, I asked. It means they're angry, he whispered. Very angry. I heard a door open on his end, a woman's voice sharp. Offended, cut through the line. Rowan, you need to explain this. Elise's mother snapped. You told us your family could afford things. Now we look foolish. I never said that. Rowan replied. I said my mom had savings. I didn't know that you took her money, Elise's father interrupted. That part you conveniently left out. Rowan didn't defend himself. Then Elise spoke, her tone cold in a way I'd never heard before. The honeymoon was important. Rowan, do you know how embarrassing it would have been to post pictures from some cheap hotel? My friends would have roasted me. It wasn't free for me, Rowan said. I hurt my mom. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, she snapped. It's frustrating, but we need to understand before judging. So this is about appearances? Rowan asked quietly. Elise laughed, humorless. Of course it is. Do you think people live their lives without thinking about how they look? Grow up. Her mother stepped in again. We're not giving you money. We're not bailing you out. You created this mess. Rowan exhaled shakily. I'm trying to fix it. Fix yourself first, her father said. Then maybe fix your marriage. There was a long silence before Rowan's voice returned to me, smaller than I'd ever heard it. They don't want to help, he whispered. They all turned on me. I closed my eyes, hearing the breaking in his voice that he couldn't hide anymore. The world he built around impressing people was crumbling, and there was nothing left to hold on to. Rowan showed up at my door 2 days later. He looked like he hadn't slept. Eyes swollen, shirt wrinkled, shoulders slumped. Elise moved back with her parents. He said as soon as I opened the door, she said she needs space. I stepped aside so he could come in. He paced the living room like he was searching for something he'd lost. We fought all night, he said. She kept saying I embarrassed her, that I made her look cheap, that her friends would judge her if they found out the trip wasn't paid for the way she said. What did you tell her, I asked. The truth, he said. I told her I took money that wasn't mine. I explained the funds came from you, not me. Elise was shocked, and I had to clarify quickly before assumptions spread. He sank onto the couch. Her dad said I should have planned better. Her mom said I'm unstable. Elise said she didn't sign up for this. She said love shouldn't feel like a downgrade. I lowered myself into the chair across from him. What do you believe? He rubbed his face. I don't know. I thought giving her everything she wanted would make our life solid, but it wasn't real. None of it was real. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. I never meant to take your chance at getting better. I know you didn't mean to, I said. But meaning doesn't undo what happened. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I'm trying to grow up, he whispered. I just don't know where to start. You start by stopping, I said. Stop trying to live through other people's expectations. Stop pretending you're fine when you're breaking inside. He looked at me like he wanted forgiveness. But I couldn't give it yet. Not when the consequences were still unfolding through my body, my life, my future. Mom, he said softly, I'm scared. For the first time, he wasn't hiding behind pride or appearances. His world had fallen apart, and he was finally standing in the wreckage instead of running from it. The house felt too quiet the week after Rowan's marriage fell apart. He called every night, checking on me, offering solutions he didn't have. I listened, but I didn't lean on him. I couldn't not for this. 2 days later, I sat in the insurance office with a folder in my lap, the one labeled with my husband's handwriting. He'd left a small survivor fund tucked away years ago, not enough to live on, not nearly enough to feel safe, but just enough to cover the part of the surgery the $30,000 had been meant for. When the advisor finished calculating the withdrawal, she looked at me gently. "Are you sure you want to use this now? You don't have other reserves." "I don't have other time," I said. She verified my identity and reviewed the account details before processing the payment. I didn't tell Rowan a word. I didn't want him carrying a guilt that wouldn't help either of us breathe. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. I told Rowan I had routine appointments. He believed me. He wanted to believe me. I let him. The procedure was long, and recovery hurt more than I expected. But I made it through. When my cousin Leah drove me home afterward, she fussed over me the way she always had. "You're stronger than all of us." "You know that," she said. "Your husband would have been proud that you used his fund to take care of yourself." Rowan had just walked through the door when she said it. He froze. "What fund?" I closed my eyes. Leah gasped softly, realizing she'd stepped somewhere she shouldn't have. "Mom," Rowan whispered. "You used Dad's money. Why didn't you tell me you would have fallen apart?" I said. "You were already drowning. I wasn't going to hand you another weight." He shook his head, tears rising. "I should have been the one helping you, not the reason you ran out of choices." His voice cracked, raw and small. "You saved yourself," he said, "and I wasn't part of that." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth sat between us, heavy but real, and neither of us looked away. Recovery wasn't graceful. It came in inches, not strides. Some mornings I could sit up without help. Others, I needed to breathe through the pain before my feet touched the floor. But I was healing, and that mattered more than anything I'd lost along the way. Rowan visited often, always carrying something: soup, groceries, a small envelope with $30 or $40 he insisted on giving back. "It isn't much," he'd say every time. "It's what you can manage." I'd answer, "That's enough." He picked up extra shifts wherever he could, covering part of his expenses, though it wasn't nearly enough to repay the money. His face looked older, thinner, but there was something steadier in him, a quiet acceptance I hadn't seen before. One afternoon, he showed up earlier than usual. "Mom, Elise filed for separation," he said. "Her parents think it's for the best." I nodded. "And what do you think?" He hesitated. I finally understand what I built my life on. None of it was real. I'm trying to fix that now." "You're doing the work," I said. "That's where change begins." He sat beside me on the couch. "Are we okay?" "We're getting there," I said. "Honesty helps." He laughed under his breath. "I'm learning that the hard way." Weeks passed. I began tending to the small patch of soil behind the house, planting herbs and fragile flowers that needed patience, something I finally had space for. I started helping at the community center again, just a few hours at a time, sorting donated books or listening to people who needed company more than answers. Rowan kept showing up, not to impress anyone, not to perform, just to be my son. One evening, after a long follow-up appointment, I walked to the St. John's Bridge and leaned on the railing. The sky was turning a soft gold, the river shifting beneath it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed the world an explanation. Rowan stopped beside me. "You look lighter," he said. "I am," I answered. He didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't force it. We stood there quietly, breathing the same air, finally on solid ground. If this story has touched you, hit like, leave a comment, or subscribe for more stories. The sun lowered behind the bridge, and I let the peace settle in my chest. Peace I'd finally chosen for myself.